Welcome to the Parsha Perspective. Each week, we will delve deep in a weekly Torah portion to find a practical and insightful way to enhance your daily life. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Rabbi Shalom Yamini, and each week we will look into the weekly Torah portion to find practical and insightful ways to enhance your daily life. This week's Parsha Perspective is in honor of our homeland, Eretz Yisroel. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu, may God continue to protect our soldiers, and may God comfort all those who are grieving and give healing to our people. This week's Parsha Perspective is in loving memory of Edward ben Efraim, Shlomo ben Edward, and Yirachmiel Daniel ben Gedalia. May their souls be uplifted, and may their memories be a blessing. This week's Torah portion is Parshas Chayei, the courage to begin. Before I begin, this week on the 20th of Cheshvan was the 5th Yahrzeit of HaRav Tzvi ben Dovid Sacks, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, of blessed memory. Serving as Chief Rabbi of the United Kingdom from 1991 until 2013, he authored over 40 books that resonated across the world. His profound wisdom, combined with his empathy and compassion, established him as a guiding light for people of all backgrounds. Rabbi Sacks returned his holy soul to his Maker on the 20th of Cheshvan in 2020. Yet his teachings, his lessons continue to inspire and uplift countless of individuals. And may his enduring legacy continue to be a source of blessing for his family and for all of the Jewish people. Our Parsha begins with the passing of Sarah Imenu, the first matriarch of the Jewish nation at 127 years old. Avraham mourned deeply for his wife and then negotiated with Efraim the Hittite to purchase a burial plot in the city of Hebron. The land, known as the Ma'aras HaMachpelah, was acquired for 400 shekels and would become the resting place for the founders of our nation. After mourning for Sarah Imenu, Avraham turned his attention to finding a suitable wife for his son Yitzchak. He sent his most trusted servant Eliezer on a mission: find a match, find a wife for his son. Eliezer davened to God and asked him for guidance in choosing the future wife of Yitzchak Avinu. Eliezer formulated a test: the girl who would offer him water and then show kindness by giving water to his camels would be the wife, would be the one destined for Yitzchak Avinu. Eliezer approached the city well, where he encountered a young girl carrying a jug of water on her shoulders. When he requested some water, not only did she give him to drink, but eagerly drew water for his many camels. And this act of extraordinary kindness revealed her character, fulfilling the sign that Eliezer davened for in his prayer when asking God to find a wife for Yitzchak Avinu. Upon asking her identity, Eliezer learned that her name was Rivkah, and that she was Avram's great niece, and at that moment he knew and he understood that she was the one, she was the wife of Yitzchak Avinu. Filled with gratitude, Eliezer thanked HaKadosh Baruch Hu for his clear guidance and his blessing and his answer to his prayers. Rivkah ran home to share the events with her family. Her brother Lavan, intrigued by the stranger, went out to greet Eliezer and invited him to stay. The following day, Rivkah agreed to travel with Eliezer to Canaan, knowing that she was the beginning of a journey that would shape the future of the Jewish people. When Yitzchak and Rivkah finally met, Yitzchak brought her into his mother's tent to see if the miracle of Sarah's tent would return. Her Shabbos candles remained lit from Friday to Friday. Her dough stayed fresh and multiplied as needed, and the divine cloud of glory rested upon the tent. And when Sarah passed away, these miracles stopped. But the moment Rivkah entered the tent, they returned, revealing her unique greatness and the continuity of Sarah's legacy. The Parsha concludes with Avram giving all of his possessions to Yitzchak, securing the future of his mission. Avram passes away at the age of 175 years old and was buried by Yitzchak and Yishmael beside Sarah Imenu in the Ma'aras Machpelah in Hebron. To this day, many people travel to Hebron this Shabbos, called Shabbos Chayei, to honor the place that Avram purchased and to stand in the city where holiness is embedded. However, a question comes to mind. The pasuk uses a unique and unusual way to describe Avram's passing. The pasuk writes, "Vayigva, vayomas Avram b'seifa teva, zakein v'sevea, vayasev el hamav." Avram Avinu breathed his last breath, dying at a good, ripe old age, content as he was gathered to his people. The wording is striking. It does not simply state that Avraham died. It speaks of a final breath, of a life filled with goodness and holiness and then being gathered to his people. Why this layered description, and what does it reveal about the legacy he carried to his last moments? The Sifrono, Rav Ovadia Sifrono, gives us a simple explanation. And he writes that when the Torah says, Vayasef el Amav, he was gathered to his people, it is not speaking about a burial or a lineage. It describes the moment where the neshama joins the company of tzaddikim, of the righteous in the world to come in Olam Haba. According to Sifrono, the word Amav, his people, appears in plural because within the gathering there are many spiritual levels. Every tzaddik, every righteous person's neshama enters the eternal life. Yet each one reflects the unique measure of holiness, of greatness it achieved in this world. And with Avram's passing, it describes it this way to show us that his neshama, his soul, entered the community of tzaddikim that rest in God's presence, sitting amongst those who exist within his holy throne room in Olam Haba, in the world to come. However, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, of blessed memory, in his book Covenant and Conversation, gives us a deeper and more profound explanation. He writes that the Torah's description of Avram's passing reveals something essential about the way Avram lived. Avram Avinu faced a life filled with trials, filled with uncertainty. He left his home, he entered a famine, he feared for his life, and he waited years for a child, yet the Torah describes him as old, as content and complete. And Rabbi Sacks challenges, how can such a life end in such peace? He explains that Avram reached a different kind of fulfillment. Not the fulfillment that comes from completed promises, but the fulfillment that comes from knowing that you began what God asked of you. Avram did not see the land in his hands. He did not see a nation spread across the earth, but he saw the first purchase of land in Hebron. He saw Yitzchak marry and ready to continue the mission he began. He saw the next step, and for him, that was enough. Rabbi Sacks teaches us that contentment comes not from finishing the journey, but from taking the first faithful and challenging steps. This is how we understand the words, Vayasev el Amav, and he gathered to his people. It is the Torah's way of telling us that Avram left this world with clarity. He left this world with peace. He understood that God's promises would unfold through time and through the following generations. And he trusted that the next generation would carry the story forward. His work was not complete, but his part was. And the trust allowed him to close his eyes without fear. He knew that God would complete what he began. Rabbi Sacks explains that this is the deepest lesson of Avraham Avinu and Sarah Imenu's life. To be blessed with everything does not mean having everything. It means knowing that you live for something far beyond yourself. It means accepting that your place in the story is one chapter, not the whole book. Avraham Avinu and Sarah Imenu lived with that faith. Their lives were not easy, but they were full, they were complete. They walked with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they trusted him with the rest. And that is why the Torah describes their final years with such serenity, such peace. They lived with purpose, and they left with peace. This profound lesson from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks is ever more relevant in a world that moves faster than we can think. People are judged by their steps in the moment, not by the vision they carry. Decisions are measured by speed and not by depth. Yet Avram and Sarah remind us that a life is not defined by what is finished. It is defined by the direction you choose and the purpose you hold. They began a journey that we are still continuing. Every journey in each generation adds a part to that unbroken chain of our nation, of our people. And our task is not only about completing the story. It is about carrying it forward with strength, with faith, and with conviction. Every single act of faith, of emunah, every moment of courage in your Judaism, every choice towards the holiness builds a world that Avram and Sarah dreamt of. And we move their mission closer to its fulfillment until the day God's glory is revealed and the third Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt in Yerushalayim with the coming of Mashiach. In our daily life, it is imperative to realize that the greatest challenge we face is often this simple act of beginning. Taking the first step asks us to move before we are ready, to trust the path even when the destination is still unclear, to believe that growth can start with a single choice. Most people wait for certainty, yet certainty rarely arrives, and the moment begins to slowly disappear. The courage to start is the foundation of every meaningful journey. Beginning demands faith even when the clarity feels distant. It asks us to trust that God walks with us even when the next step is hidden from view. And it is often harder to begin than to continue, because beginning requires conviction before results appear and the strength before the path yet feels secure. But when we choose to move forward, even in small ways, we create the space for God to guide what comes next. And a single beginning can open an entire future. A single act of courage can shape the course of a life. There's a profound quote from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. To belong to the Jewish people is to know that your life is a sentence in a story written by God. Have a great weekend and good Shabbos. Thank you for tuning in to the Parsha Perspective. Check out our website, theparshaperspective.com. Send thoughts and comments to theparshaperspective@gmail.com. Till next time, thanks for listening.